Welcome to today's Explainer. I am so excited you're here because we are diving into something truly special. When we think about traveling to a massive global city, our brains usually go straight to the stressful stuff, right? Logistics, tickets, packed landmarks, it's exhausting just thinking about it. But today, we're unpacking a totally different approach. We're looking at the philosophy of Lao Wang. He's a Beijing-born local who is literally redefining how we experience travel. His service is called Bespoke Beijing, and let me tell you, it's not about booking standard run-of-the-mill tours. It's really about reviving the lost art of personal hosting.
So, what actually makes a meaningful day in Beijing? I want you to really think about that for a second. Because for most of us, a good travel day is kind of just measured by volume. How many sites did we cram in? How many photos did we snap? How many boxes did we tick off that guidebook checklist? We basically exhaust ourselves trying to consume the city. But what if that entire premise is actually the very thing standing in the way of a true, authentic experience?
Lao Wang's philosophy hits the nail on the head here. He says a meaningful day in Beijing is not the one with the most stops, it is the one that leaves the clearest memory. That is just so profound, right? It perfectly captures the essence of what we're exploring today, this concept of restraint. It's the idea that by doing less, we actually give the city the breathing room it needs to remain alive and real to us, instead of just being this exhausting blur rushing past a bus window.
Section 1. Beyond the tourist checklist, moving past the trap of landmarks.
Okay, let's dive into this because the contrast between these two approaches is just night and day. We all know the drill with a conventional guided tour. It's rushed itineraries, repetitive stops, and checking boxes that ultimately reduce a vast, incredibly complex city down to just a few flattened landmarks. Bespoke Beijing takes the exact opposite approach. It completely relies on deep local judgment, a strict less but better travel ethos, pacing that's built entirely around the guest and an authentic connection. It is the literal difference between merely touring a city and actually understanding it.
Section 2. The private host philosophy. More than just a guide.
So, what exactly is a private host? Well, it's a thoughtful local expert who personally shapes and connects your entire stay based on your pace and interests, rather than just reciting facts on a fixed itinerary. And notice what's specifically missing from that definition. Lao Wang doesn't frame himself primarily as a historian or some luxury concierge flashing a VIP badge. He's a host. And a host genuinely cares about your comfort, your pace, and your personal experience. They make sure the city is never reduced to just a mere checklist. So, the crucial point is that this whole philosophy is built on 4 core pillars that govern absolutely everything Lao Wang does. Pillar 1, local judgment, really knowing the city intimately. Pillar 2, less but better travel, that sense of restraint we just talked about. Pillar 3, personal hosting, designing the day around you rather than sticking to a script. And finally, Pillar 4, continuity, seamlessly connecting the dots of your trip so the whole thing feels totally cohesive from start to finish.
When you're actually on the ground, that first pillar, local judgment, is all about knowing the city deeply. It means knowing when a super famous place simply isn't worth battling the massive crowds that day, and having the agility to just pivot. It's knowing exactly where to look. We're talking about noticing the specific color of a roof, a beautifully worn threshold, or the way a super old neighborhood intersects with a brand new road. And honestly, perhaps most importantly, it's knowing when to stop. Not every single hour needs a new destination.
Section 3. 3 ways into Beijing, applying the philosophy.
The first way in, or perspective, is Imperial Beijing, beyond the palace. Now, this isn't just about staring at old buildings. Lao Wang shapes this experience to show how Imperial Beijing was actually designed to control how people moved, how they waited, and where they looked. It's fascinating because it beautifully connects power, ritual, and everyday life. Now, major sites like the Forbidden City can still be absolutely essential to the day, but the goal here is to help you understand why Beijing was built this way in the first place, completely removing those low-value, repetitive stops that usually clutter up a standard tour.
And that brings up a really vital insight from Lao Wang. Sometimes the right pause becomes the part people remember. Think about your own travels for a second. Often, your absolute favorite memory isn't the giant monument itself, right? It's that quiet, amazing cup of tea you had right afterward, just sitting and reflecting on what you just saw. Lao Wang's design deliberately builds those crucial pauses right in.
This philosophy of the right pause is incredibly evident in our second perspective, beyond the Great Wall, specifically taking a full day at Jinshanling. This entire day is shaped entirely around the ridge itself, and, most importantly, your unique pace.
The focus is 100% on space and quiet. It's a complete, utter rejection of the rushed, crowded tourist trap experience. Instead, the excursion is dynamically connected to that actual day's weather and road timing, perfectly embodying that less but better pillar we talked about.
Section 4, Continuity and Personal Hosting, Beijing Beyond a Single Day.
Now, for multi-day stays, the value of having a single, trusted local becomes just immense. The experience flows so seamlessly. It starts with a warm, personal welcome right at the airport, expertly arranging all the transport, and curating really thoughtful hotel and restaurant recommendations. Lawang personally hosts all your confirmed days. But the real magic? That's the ability to adjust plans dynamically as conditions change, and even coordinate specialists when it's useful. If the weather suddenly turns, or hey, if you're just feeling tired, the plan flexes effortlessly. And finally, it all concludes with seeing you off at departure. This kind of complete continuity literally removes all traveler stress.
Section 5. What changes when the guest changes? Designing around the individual.
Now, what's really interesting about this breakdown is seeing this customized design process actually in action and seeing how different the exact same city looks for different people. For example, for a mother and teenage daughter who are interested in photography and quiet meals, the design doesn't just cram in a second monument to fill time. Instead, it offers an imperial morning, a much slower neighborhood afternoon, and a really calm meal for conversation. But for a first-time visitor, the priority completely shifts to creating one clear historical spine with natural pauses to connect the pieces. And for a full day at the wall, the specific section isn't chosen just because its name is famous. It's chosen based on the group's actual walking comfort and that specific day's weather forecast. The same city fundamentally adapts based on who you actually are.
Section 6. The design note. Starting a conversation, not a transaction.
This entire unique process begins with attention, not an itinerary. You don't just go online, click a button, and buy a prepackaged tour. The focus is entirely on your unique needs. You share what actually matters to you as the very first step in creating a personal direction. And importantly, things like scope and pricing are discussed totally clearly before anything is ever confirmed. That stuff is kept strictly secondary to building the right relationship. It really is a true, genuine conversation from the very first interaction.
Let's move forward and see how this builds in practice, because it's a wonderfully simple, ongoing conversation. Step 1, you tell them what matters, your specific interests, your preferred pace, and crucially, what you'd rather avoid. Step 2, Lao Wang writes back personally. He actually reads it and replies, suggesting where to begin, what deserves priority, and deliberately, what to leave out. Finally, step 3, if the direction feels right, he designs and personally hosts a day that actually fits the people traveling.
All of this leaves us with one incredibly vital question. What kind of Beijing do you want to remember? Do you want to look back on a blur of crowds, exhausted feet, and checked boxes? Or do you crave a meaningful, deep connection shaped by one thoughtful local person who genuinely helps you experience the city better? By embracing local judgment, valuing space and quiet, and designing travel around the individual rather than the landmark, Bespoke Beijing really offers a blueprint for a richer, much more human way to see the world. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I truly hope it transforms the way you approach your next journey.